This is Think Tech Hawaii. Community matters here.
Aloha and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Pauline Jacques-Marchon, your host for Outside In. Today we're off to the Med with a medical expert to discuss the Mediterranean diet. My guest today is Dr. Michele Carbone, Director of the Thoracic Oncology Program at the University of Hawaii's Cancer Center and Professor of Pathology at the John A. Burns School of Medicine. Dr. Carbone is also the author of the food blog, michelecarbone.org. Ciao, Michele.
Ciao, Pauline. Great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today and being my guest on the show.
Thank you.
And now, for most people who are aware of your presence in Hawaii, they associate you with being a cancer surgeon. Is that correct? That's what you are known for.
When I park the car, most people ask me recipes, so I do not know among the two which one they know me most.
So that's what I'm thinking of. There are people who are less aware, unless they've had the honor of being a guest in your house, that you are actually a very fine chef. And you have this food blog. And we encourage people to visit this blog. It's michelecarbone.org, as I mentioned in the intro. And I just wanted to ask you, before we get into the Mediterranean diet and healthy lifestyle and how it's associated with ingredients, first-rate ingredients and cooking, why do you love to cook so much?
Look, cooking is the only thing that I know of that you can bring everybody together to agree on something. People disagree on everything. You can pick the topic, and there are strong different opinions about the same fact. But you bring them in front of a good dish that tastes well, and everybody agrees and loves it. So it's the only thing that I can think of that you can bring people from no matter what country, no matter what they think, believe, etc., all together, love each other, agree each other, and be happy. So for somebody like me who likes company, who likes friends, who likes to be with people, that's a perfect way to bring people together and have them happy. There is a big difference if you cook it or if you go to a restaurant. So I like to cook it.
Yes, there is a different flavor to the food if somebody's prepared it themselves with the love, right?
The food will taste different if you make with love. There is no question. If you walk in a kitchen and you see that people are angry and stressed, the food is not going to taste good. You need to love what you're doing.
Now, Michele, you didn't always cook, right?
I didn't cook until I went to medical school. When I went to medical school, my mother taught me how to make an espresso and gave me a book on how to cook, and that's how more or less started.
And looking at your blog, the book that your mother gave you is called The Gentleman Cook.
Yes.
And is this an Italian recipe book? Or?
It's not a recipe book. It's a book that this guy wrote and that actually I found fascinating, and I read it. And deals with food and tells you how things mix together, what you should do with, if you get an artichoke, how you clean it. I mean, if you don't know how to do it, it's a problem. And so on. And so allows you to understand the basics, but really gives very few recipes and doesn't tell you 5 spoons of this or 3 spoons of this. Say a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then you have to figure it out.
Yeah, so use your judgment. Even though the recipe books give you measurements, precise measurements, you just have to, by practicing, see what your own personal measurements are for each recipe. And then you can invent your own recipes. It allows for that creativity.
Inevitably, everybody, even if you take a recipe from a book, the first time you do it, then you change it. Everybody does that.
And I noticed also that you like to, if you experience something culinary that is pleasing to you in a particular restaurant, because you still go to restaurants, right? You don't give up on restaurants completely, but if you like something the chef has created, you kind of demand to see the chef and see how you can do it.
I don't demand. I usually walk into the kitchen and I talk to the chef and I say, you did it. And sometimes they don't tell you the whole story. So you go home, you do it, then you call them up and you say, hey, I did it, but it didn't come out the same way. Why is that? And now they take you seriously, because the first time they think is one of the many people who want to know they'll never do it. But then if you call them up and you say, look, I am 1,000 miles away, I did it, doesn't look good, let's go over it again, then it's a different thing. And many recipes I learned that way.
And you also cook because is it relaxing for you as well? It's not just the social aspect. Is it something that
I cook because I love to cook, first of all. Second of all, I love to eat. And
don't we all?
and I like to eat well. So I
Yes,
figured
yes.
it out that the best way to be sure I eat well is that I cook it for myself.
That's right. And the most important thing to you, and as should be for most people, is that you use first-rate ingredients. The ingredients are the most important thing, and they should be high quality. Is that correct?
Yes, sometimes you hear, oh, this wine is bad, so I'll use it for cook. Well, now you're sure that whatever you cook is going to taste bad.
And a lot of this, the reasons you've been giving are more for social pursuits or creative pursuits or culinary fondness. But there's also something very important about cooking, which is the diet of an individual, because this can help prevent disease, and it can make somebody perhaps live a little bit longer than they originally would have if they were eating bad things. So as Dr. Mayo, the famous Dr. Mayo of the Mayo Clinic, said that the prevention of disease should be one of the most important human endeavors. So we're not only trying to enjoy ourselves and have lovely food, we're also trying to have a better body. Is that correct? That's also important.
I think that nobody, given the choice, would prefer to go to the doctor to be treated than not going to the doctor in the first place because you're fine. Cooking has to be something that you enjoy without killing yourself. So it's not so much preventing as to eat good stuff so that you do not hurt yourself. And there is a lot of very healthy stuff, but yet when you look, for example, those cooking shows, have you seen it, a cooking show?
Yes.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It looks like that they go out of their way to kill you. The amount of fat, sugar, and things that they put over there is phenomenal.
And one of the things that is the backbone of this Mediterranean diet interest is there are a lot of different diets out there, right? You can do Atkins diet, there are all sorts of trends. But I think the Mediterranean one is one of the more important ones one should focus on, because I think National Geographic was the one to discuss this, but there are the blue zones, the supposed blue zones all over the world, these 5 regions that have the longest living people in them. So these 5 regions are Sardinia in the Mediterranean, Icaria, the island in Greece, Costa Rica, Loma Linda, California, this is the community of the Seventh-day Adventists, and Okinawa, Japan. So out of the 5 regions, 2 of them are located in the Mediterranean. So a lot of this has to do with what these people are ingesting that results in the longer life, this longevity. So do you agree with this kind of theory that it's mostly the diet that's related to the higher rates of longevity among these people?
Well, we know that about 50% of cancer deaths and heart deaths are caused by either smoking or diet. So you take that out, you see the difference. It's a big difference. Mediterranean diet is not really a diet. It's the way you eat every day. When you talk about the Atkins diet, at most you can think you can survive 2 weeks of that, but then you're going to suicide, okay? I mean, who want to live all his life on an Atkins diet? But the Mediterranean diet is a wonderful way to eat. You are happy, and look, you look pretty slim, right?
Now, just like all countries, not every region in Italy, you're a native Italian, but you've been in America for a very long time and you're an American citizen, but cooking is very important to Italians. And not every region in Italy has exactly the same cuisine. Just like in France, there are different parts of France that are known for particular things, like champagne or Dijon mustard, something like that. So your family originates from Calabria. This is southern Italy, southern Italian cuisine. So what are the particular aspects of southern Italian cuisine?
The main difference is that in the south we cook with olive oil because we have the olive trees, and in the north they cook with butter. So of course it's very, very different.
And one is more unhealthy than the other, or?
Of course, the southern one is much, much better and healthier than the northern one. There is no question about that.
No, I'm obviously not a cancer researcher like yourself, but is it correct that the olive oil, not only is it good for your internal system, it's also good for the skin, And it's not as greasy as people think. Once you rub it into the skin, it absorbs. So it's not doesn't have a greasy feel. And this is extra virgin olive oil we're talking about. This is the one with the maximum health benefit.
Yes.
So is it true that it actually kills a part of the cancer cell? Is that the lysosome? It has an effect
No, it
on
does
that?
not kill the cancer cells, but it helps not to develop the cancer cells. Once you have the cancer cells, you are in trouble. Here, we don't want to have the cancer cell in the first place.
Yeah. So it prevents the...
Yes,
Okay.
together with everything else in the diet. And of course, everything depends in quantity, right? Each of these, everything in life, if you do too much, is bad, right? So the same thing with olive oil. If you drink a liter of it, it's not good, okay? So using quantities that are natural.
So this reminds me of the film. It's a French-Italian film. The director is Ferretti. And it stars a very famous Italian actor who is unfortunately deceased. His name was Marcello Mastroianni. So this is called La Grande Bouffe in French and La Grande Abbuffata in Italian. So the story, for those of you who have not seen the film, is about these four men who lock themselves in a house and they're trying to commit suicide by overeating. So one of the characteristics of the blue zones is to stop eating when your stomach is 80% full. So is this a wise thing to do, Michele?
Yes, and you can consider this way actually, that when you decide that you stop eating is determined by impulses that go back to your brain, by nerves that are on the wall of the stomach that tell you when you're full. And that depends on how distended is the stomach. They adjust to themselves. So the more you eat, the more they are used to reach a certain size, the more they wait to tell your brain you're full. So the more you eat, the more you want to eat. If you eat less, then those impulses that go to your brain who say you need to eat decrease, and so with time you need less to eat.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily the case that all obese people are just shoveling it in all the time. It's not necessarily they have control, because there are individuals who don't have that brain impulse. Is that correct? It's suppressed
Yes.
somehow or doesn't function properly, and that is why they're obese. So it's probably not correct to fat shame in all circumstances.
No, fat shame, not at
Yeah.
all. There are very different reasons, of course. One is a pathologic reason that you say, and that's a medical condition. But many times has to do with the fact that people eat all the time. I mean, I see that many people just eat all the time, and that's not good. You should eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but not eat all the time. We are not animals like the cows who eat all the time. You eat
Well,
2 times
some
a day,
people are,
that's it.
Yeah, and it's sometimes suggested to eat 5 small meals as opposed to 3 large ones. Is that good advice?
Whatever
sometimes?
it is, you need to adjust your stomach that you eat those times, and in between you do not eat. Also because you can control what you eat when you know when you're eating. But if you eat all the time, you can't control it.
Okay, so that's very good advice. So we're going to continue this discussion on the cuisine of the Southern Italians and Michele's own recipes when we come back after this short break.
This is Think Tech Hawaii, raising public awareness.
Aloha, my name is Mark Shklav. I am the host of Think Tech Hawaii's Law Across the Sea. Law Across the Sea comes on every other Monday at 11 a.m. Please join us. I like to bring in guests that talk about all types of things that come across the sea to Hawaii. Not just law, love, people, ideas, history. Please join us for Law Across the Sea.
Aloha, everybody. We're back with Dr. Michele Carbone, and we're continuing our discussion with his recipes on his blog, michelecarbone.org. So, Michele, let's talk about for people who have never cooked or they don't like to cook. your blog has very simple food recipes because one of the elements of Southern Italian cuisine is its simplicity, right? So nothing has to be complicated. It doesn't have to be more difficult than you have to make it. So can you give us some examples of some of the recipes you have on your blog that can be made very quickly without a lot of hassle so people can try it?
Look, the concept is this. You arrive home, it's based on my experience. You have two kids and a wife who want to eat, and because I want to cook. And you have, 30 minutes at most, and then they start complaining that they're hungry. That's the reality. Nobody has 3 hours a day to cook it. That was at the time of my grandmother, not now. So you have to be able to put together something that tastes good in 30 minutes with some simple ingredients without making things so complicated like I see sometimes on these food blogs. And that's all my recipes are simple, easy to make it.
Every single one, yep.
Well, there are a few that are a little more complicated, but the majority of them are easy to do, and you can do them in 30 minutes. That's the idea, the philosophy behind all of them.
Now, one of the simplest Italian recipes is anything related to pasta. Is that correct?
Yes.
So do you have a favorite pasta yourself? Do you have a favorite?
Look, the one that I prefer the most is my taste, is the spaghetti with vongole or cozze, that you call it mussels or clams. It's very easy to make it. It takes nothing. You take the clams, you fry some olive oil in garlic, take out the garlic from the olive oil. The Chinese leave it there. It changes the flavor. As soon as it takes color, you take it out.
Yes.
You throw the clams in, cover, wait a couple of minutes that they open up, throw half glass of wine, cover it, wait 30 seconds that it boils up, turn it off, take the clams out, the pasta is ready, put the pasta in, mix it up, add parsley and eat it. It's fantastic. It takes, nothing to make it.
How long does it take? Approximately how long?
If you know how to do it, it will take 15 minutes. If you have never done it in your life, it will take 20.
Okay, so that's not a lot of time at all.
Not a lot of time, right?
So a lot of people, what they do is they go to a restaurant for pasta.
Yes.
And one of the problems with foreign cuisine in America is that it tastes differently, number one, and then Americans tend to add ingredients that are not found in the native cuisine. So, for example, with Italian food, especially with pasta, they seem to add, all the US versions of it, they seem to add a lot of extra fat, a lot of extra sauces. So this is not a good idea, is it?
Look, the problem is that most people who cook in Italian restaurants should not be allowed to cook because they have no idea what they are doing, okay? Really, first. Second, there is the concept, the more the better, which is not true. The basic of the Italian cuisine is that you need to taste what it is. But if you close your eye and you do not know if what you are eating is swordfish or chicken, there is a problem. And the problem is that they threw so much condiment on it that everything's the same, and they killed it. And that's what you see. You order a lasagna and comes in swimming in red sauce. There should be just a little bit, and so everything.
It's a little bit, I used to spend quite a few summers in France, so it's a little bit like French cuisine. They really mess it up in American or so-called American restaurants, especially the chain ones that are not proper higher level restaurants. When you order a French onion soup, they put this layer of thick cheese on the top, which really doesn't exist when you go to the countryside in France or anything like that. So there are a lot of these added components that they call Italian or French food and so on that don't really actually exist in the native cuisine. So I want to be aware of that. So you'll see the authentic Italian recipes on Michele's food blog. So another element that you like to use besides the olive oil, and this is extra virgin olive oil, that's the one you want to be using, are
Not
herbs.
only that, it has
Yes.
to be Italian.
Yeah, it has to be. Other places make olive oil, like Cyprus, they produce very good.
Doesn't compare.
Yeah, so it has to be Italian in your opinion, but
Yes.
they make very good one. The other stress is herbs. Or
Yes,
Americans
I
say
grow them
herbs.
outside of my kitchen, all of them. I have basil, rosemary, parsley.
So you grow your own?
Yes, arugula, everything.
And it's not difficult because the sun's always out in Hawaii.
If you
right?
cannot grow it in Hawaii, where are you going to grow it? You go out, you cut a little bit, it tastes very different than if you put it in a refrigerator.
And what people will notice sometimes things that can be considered boring, like I don't find risotto particularly interesting, but when I had it at your house with your other guests, it was amazing. I liked it.
Grazie.
Because there's a huge difference, as we talked about earlier before the break, between somebody actually making it with their own hands and getting it in a restaurant. Because risotto, it looks very simple, but it has to be done properly so it doesn't come out dry.
It needs love. It needs that you make at the moment. In many restaurants, they half prepare things and then they finish it up before they bring to your table. You can't make risotto that way.
And one of the things you also like to make in your garden is the limoncello, right? It's a homemade,
Yes,
homemade
of course.
alcohol is always the best.
Yes, of course.
Yes,
That's
because
right.
it's extra strong that way. It's like when I was in France, somebody ran out of eau de vie. And the store-bought eau de vie has a lesser alcohol content. And it's actually illegal to make it above a certain point. But somebody spreads word around the village or something that we need another batch, and it's put into a little basket with a blanket over it. You get this amazing eau de vie that's not technically legal, but it's very nice to drink.
Look, I'll tell you how to make limoncello. Takes nothing to make it. That's very easy. You take lemons, you cut just the yellow of the lemons, and you put with alcohol, pure alcohol. You let them sit in the dark for about 1 week. You take it out, you mix that 1 and 1 with water, and then you have half a kilo of sugar. Mix it up, and it's done. After about 2 weeks, you can drink it. But that is a 50 proof alcohol limoncello. It's not the 20% proof thing that you buy at the shop.
Yeah,
Okay?
which tastes rather boring in comparison to the homemade one.
It's terrible.
It's like when I go to Japan, one of my favorite drinks is the plum wine, the umeshu. And the store-bought version is not quite the same thing. The restaurant can have a higher grade version, but the homemade one is amazing. So it's a very similar process, but with plums instead of lemons.
Look, every chef knows that you cannot compete with homemade
Yeah.
kitchen cooking. There is no way, because the restaurant can't compete.
And one of the other aspects of the cuisine of this region, and generally in European countries, particularly France and Italy, is the multiple courses, right? So small portions, but a variety of them.
Yes.
It's kind of like a Greek mezze. You get a little bit of variety, a little bit of everything.
Yes.
So you get, also the Japanese do this. This is what French say haute cuisine. The Japanese say kaiseki. This is from Kyoto. It's the
Yes.
Kyoto haute cuisine, which I love. So those tend to be much smaller. So the Japanese version is about 10 or 11 courses, but very tiny different things. Typically, the Italian ones are four or five. Is that
3,
right?
first, second, and fruit. Oh, well, there is also the salad next to the second, so 4 if you want.
Now, sometimes people who cook, they're not necessarily bakers as well.
I don't bake.
Yeah, that's right. So you're either a surfer or a stand-up paddler, and people who cook don't necessarily bake.
But that's
So-
true in any restaurant. You have
Yes.
the chef,
And
and
yes.
then you have the bakery chef, the cake chef, the guy who makes cakes.
You don't like sweets? You don't
No,
like?
I don't.
Ah, okay. Because it's bad for you, or because it's tempting, or what?
I like to be in shape, and one way to be in shape is to stay away from the sweets.
That's right. And now, do your daughters cook as well?
Yes, they do.
And what are some of their favorite recipes?
Of course, mine.
No, but what do they like to eat? What do they have? You have fish dishes on your blog. You have
My daughter, the little one, likes the matriciana that I make very much. My other daughter likes the risotti, but they like them all.
And what is the dish you love cooking the most? What is your favorite thing? Because I
It
was
really-
watching you cook the fish, and you seem to be having the most fun with the fish on the fire.
You know, I love to cook it on the fireplace.
Yeah.
If I am on the fireplace, I love to cook in the fireplace. I can cook anything in the fireplace, but I love to cook in the fireplace. The meat, the fish, it tastes so much better in a fireplace than on a grill. I don't have a fireplace here, of course, but
Oh.
I have a beautiful fireplace in my house in Italy, and I love to cook there on a fireplace.
Okay.
I like to cook everything. It's a question of the moment, how you feel about it, and the people that are around.
And what is your opinion of the Italian restaurants that are in Hawaii? Do you like some of them, or are
I
they
hear-
acceptable to you?
You know,
As an
because I cook Italian food, when I go out, I always eat Japanese places and French places where they cook things different than I cook. So I cannot comment on the Italian restaurants.
So you've never been to any Italian place in Hawaii?
I've been to a couple, and I don't want to say which ones.
Oh, okay. But you didn't have a bad experience, just a mediocre one compared to what you're used to at home.
You say that.
Okay, that's the diplomatic version of your reply. So, in the time that we've got left, we've just got a few more minutes.
Yes.
Tell us what's going on with your research at the Cancer Center now.
We made a major discovery. We published in Nature a few months ago. Nature is the premier journal in science. For us scientists, publishing in Nature is like winning an Oscar in the movies.
That's Jerry. Jerry Molino is part of this.
No, Jerry is not part of
okay,
it.
yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
In Jerry, we published another paper in a
Okay.
journal, which he is the editor-in-chief. No,
Okay.
Nature is a British journal. It's from
Okay.
London. It's the famous British journal.
I only know the Lancet.
Okay, Lancet is more
Yeah.
clinical. Nature is the
Clinical.
most famous scientific journal in the world. We discovered a new mechanism of why some people get cancer. We discovered how it works. And we have discovered this new cancer syndrome that is caused by this mutation of a gene called BAP1 that some people are born in. And now we discovered how it works. And now we are very excited because we are doing a clinical trial soon. We are planning it right now that targets this mechanism that we discovered in this disease that we discovered. So we discovered the disease. We discover why it happens and why these people get cancer. And now we are doing a clinical trial to target this specific mechanism and see if when they have cancer, we can treat them. So it's very exciting. Everybody's very exciting in my place, and it's wonderful.
And how large is your team in your lab?
It varies because people come and go, but on average, we are between 14 and 16.
And do you still commute to Chicago regularly between Chicago and Hawaii?
I
or
don't
mostly
commute
based?
regularly, but I often go on mainland. You know, the fact is that we are a little bit geographically isolated, so it's very important in science to have teamwork, to work with other places. And so I travel, I have a lot of collaborators around the United States. I work with them, but what is important is that we lead and they collaborate with us. That's how I like to collaborate.
Yeah, and you have quite an international team of researchers just overall at the Cancer Center, don't you?
Yes, usually they call my lab the UN because they
Yes.
come from all over.
There are lots of, I met some of your Japanese colleagues, I met some of your other European colleagues. So there's quite a mix of people besides Americans and Hawaiians.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chinese, Japanese, from all over we have people.
Yeah, and do you still travel to give presentations on your research still?
I travel all over all the time, too much. I try to travel less.
You have to cut it down.
Yes.
It gets it's exciting when you're younger, but it gets tiresome as you get a little bit older, I think.
It's
yeah.
a little, especially because, you know, when you are in Chicago, going to Washington is a one-day trip.
Yeah.
From here, if you go to Washington, it's a long trip.
Thank you so much for being a guest on Outside In, Michele. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday for another episode of Outside In. Ciao. Thank you very much.
Ciao.